I thought we'd look at something a bit different this week. So today I am going to be working on this, an L85. Right, so I've been given this L85 to put a MOSFET in. This isn't a G&G, this isn't an Aries, this is a ICS. So let's open it up and go over how to install a MOSFET in an ICS L85 or any of the SC80 derivatives they do. The owner of this gun has given me the MOSFET they want installed, and that is a WarFET. And I've literally just noticed that it's actually a L85 on the box, which is nice. Version 1.1. I don't know what version we're on at the moment, but let's have a look. So WarFET is very similar to the other MOSFETs I've used. It is made by Gate as well. I normally use AABs or MRFs. WarFET is a good choice. In fact, it's better than any of the ones I've used. More features. So it looks like an inline, but it's not. So we've got battery comes in one side, these go out to the motors, and these are our trigger contacts. So this is what we have to wire up. We also get in the box a programming card, which I have yet to use, so I will have to read the manual on how to use that and set that up for him. And we also get the manual. You can see that. And I believe hidden under these sheets is everything we're going to need to wire this up. Well, that's handy. So tearing down the ICS L85 is actually pretty simple. So first off, I'm just going to take the SUSAT off to make our lives a bit easier. I might end up taking the DD rail off as well. So pop that open, lift up on the latch, and we've unloosened these two screws and it should slide forward. There we go. You can see they've modified their gas plug in here so that they can fit the battery up in this space, which is actually quite a smart idea. Push out this pin, and these are self-retained, unlike the G&G actually. Take it out to its self-retaining point, that comes off. Be careful, don't lose that. Ooh, just noticed that, and that's probably not the best. He's missing his butt plate screw here, which puts tension on the motor adjust height. So that's something he's got to keep an eye on. And then next we can push out the 4-pin on the TMH. It's a trigger mechanism housing, or lower receiver as the Americans know it. And we should be able to push down on the gearbox a bit and prise the TMH off of the upper receiver. Oh, this one's really stuck on, is that? There we go. So then we need to take the two motor connectors off the back. These aren't your standard motor connectors, though you can use standard ones with a bit of finesse. In fact, I do mine. And we can take the gearbox out. Now we're going to need to take the inner barrel out. And the inner barrel spring. There. Right, so here we have the contacts on the receiver and the contacts in the TMH. I like to call these the pogo pins because they are sprung. They're sprung loaded so that they can give a positive contact onto the trigger mechanism, and also so that when the safety selector is slid across, this can move out of the way and spring into place properly. Here we see the contacts of the trigger mechanism within the trigger mechanism housing. Funny that. As you can see, at present they are both exposed so that if this gun was together, the pogo pins would be making contact. And in fact, we can see slight scorch marks where current has arced into these contacts from the pogo pins. We can note that the selector switch is on fire, hence they're both exposed. However, when the selector switch is pushed into safe, this contact is shielded by this plastic cover, and the pogo pin can no longer make contact with it, therefore rendering the gun safe. As an additional step, this bar also blocks the trigger from being able to be pulled, meaning that the trigger contacts further back, if I move the gun into safe, you can see actuate right here, can't be actuated as an additional level of safety. Now, I'd like to address one of the common faults I find with ICS trigger mechanisms, and that's that this surface here doesn't have any form of beveling on it, so that sometimes the pogo pin can jump into this gap and the gun can be placed onto safe and then not be re-engaged into fire, without taking the gun apart first and then setting this on fire and putting it back together. What I've done on my trigger contacts is just shave part of the plastic away so it's got a nice bevel on it, so that as you push across it pushes the pin back up, and that has helped solve that issue. So now that I've talked about the trigger make a bit, let's get on with actually installing this MOSFET. And to do that, we're going to need to take the front handguard off. Now normally if you've just got the plastic handguard, it's push the button, slide it on out. This one's been modified with the Madball DD rail. So to do that, take that off, we need to flip it over and then grab an SA80 tool. Well, it doesn't have to be. I'm going to use this, but it's just a flathead screw here, and we just unscrew this. And once that's unscrewed, we can take the rail off. Note that the sling loop and sling loop screw do not need to come out, unlike on most other models. It's because the ICS has got the slide handle design. Muppet here forgot that, so luckily editing me's cut all of that out and totally isn't going to put it right here, showing you how much of an idiot I am. Good. What? Oh, he has done it. Of course he has. Curse you. Right, so with the handguard open and that bottom screw out, the rail slide off the front and leave us with the outer barrel and the wiring. Now we've got to take the outer barrel out, and to do that we flip it over, grab a crosshead screwdriver, and we loosen off these two screws which allow this plate to raise up, and this plate is a locking plate that helps hold the barrel in, and then we also need to undo these two screws up here which help provide a bit of tension on the barrel. As you can see with those out, I can move around a bit and the barrel should slide out. Right, so my hope here is that we can actually hide the MOSFET in this area here. There is quite limited space in the handguard for battery, so I want to maximise the battery space to allow the end user the most amount of battery space for his gun. Actually, I'm going to take the rear trunnion out as well to give us a bit more space and ease of access to the wires to work on them. So this is the bulk size that the MOSFET is going to be. MOSFETs, what will be the battery connection, the motor connection and the signal wires. So realistically we'll want it this way around with the wires coming back this way. Like that. Bear in mind we can shorten these wires. Okay, so I think with just a bit of tweaking we can get this all to fit here, because if we can, this will be the ideal space for this MOSFET. Out of the way, maximising battery space. Right, so we're just going to cut this flag off. Trim these wires back to where we want. Now remember, we do have a bit of slack to play with because we can slide the wires forward and back in the receivers, so I'm going to trim them here. I'm going to run the wires back up here, give them a bit of slack, so this one we can make that long, just add a bit extra just in case, contingency, cut like that, and that will give us plenty of slack to run it into the handguard as well. And we will make the other one the same length just so they can be switched around easily. And put these wires out the way. I'm just trimming the heat shrink off. Got a clamp here, we're going to tin it so it's ready to solder. Let's disconnect it from the MOSFET. We don't want to solder these while they're connected to the MOSFETs because heat and excessive heat in electronics don't tend to mix all that well. There's a free factoid for you. We're going to tin the pad as well. That will give us a bit more ease of soldering together. Get that nice and tinned. It's good to go. Do not forget your heat shrink when soldering. It's a right pain in the butt. That's a fairly solid solder joint. Happy with that. Get that nice and solderful. So, brilliant. There we go. Alright, so those two connectors done. Wait for that to cool down a bit and then slide our heat shrink over. Hold those in place. Give them a bit of downward angle. Introduce them to a bit of heat. And there we go. That is those connectors done. And now we can grab the MOSFET. And realise we've soldered on the wrong connector. What a spanner. Always check what you're soldering before you solder it. Right, that's that done, so we can put the wire harness back through. Get that tucked in there. Excellent. So that's that part of the wire harness done. Pull that out. Now we need to connect our signal wires onto our little flags. I'm just going to try and push the insulation off this. There we go. Excellent. Just tin this wire. So where the heat shrink was wrapped around the core wire here, there's now a gap because we pulled the heat shrink off with it, or technically the insulation of the wire, and we're going to feed our signal wire into this gap here. And with it there, we should be able to add a bit more solder and hold that in place like so. Bear in mind, this doesn't need to carry much current. This is just a signal to know when the trigger is closed. And that, once dried, is nice and rigid in there on that flag. So just going to trim off the outer sleeves. Again, I'm an electronic engineer. I've been trained to use sign snips for things that they shouldn't be used for. If you feel like risking it, go for it. If not, pick up some wire strippers. It'll make life a lot easier, but I am a stubborn bastard, so that's why I don't have them. And again, I'm just going to tin it. Nice and tinned. Just enough to hold the cores together. Take that out. Put the flag in. Run the wire through. And solder it in place. Oh man, this would be a lot easier if I was right-handed. Oh dear. Now with this one, I'm just going to try and bend it up a little bit, just to make sure that there's enough room for the MOSFET to fit underneath. Luckily I have a vise and I have some pliers, so I should be able to do this quite quickly and easily. So hopefully this will be nice and bent out the way in now. So we've done a test fit and it looks like it's all going to go together nicely and play ball. So now we can wire up the old wire harness, or what remains of the old wire harness, to this connector here, which I've already pre-tinned, and this will run the power through from the battery and the handguard to the MOSFET. And that's ready, so we can hook that onto there. And just to help, I'm going to sand a bit of this surface down, just to give it a bit more clearance for this pogo pin to pogo. It's good, that should give it a bit more clearance on this. Yeah, just a little bit more, but every little helps. So now let's put this all back together. Okay, so I've got the gun rifle. Okay, so I've got the L85 back together now, without the handguard on. Got the programming card for the MOSFET, and we've got a charged 7.4 LiPo here. So let's hook this up and see what's going on. And it's set to stock wiring semi-auto, which is not what we want. We want modified wiring semi-auto. That is set. Cool. So we can disconnect the battery from that. We can disconnect the programming card, put that to one side. This is quite handy. They have included all of the cables you need to get it to work depending on what connectors you're using. It's quite nice to see, and you don't have to buy those extra, which is nice. Anyway, now for the big reveal. And the chamber is clear because I've just had it apart and been looking at it. So hopefully this should cycle nicely. And what about the rate of fire? Not bad for a 7.4, I'm pretty happy with that. Good to see the MOSFETs in there. Admittedly, there is a Tamiya still in the loop. Changed that out for Deans that might get a slightly higher rate of fire, but overall that's pretty decent. So that is the ICS L85 back together and working, and looking rather good, I do have to say. Yes, the MOSFET is kind of visible through the lightning holes, but no more so than the pogo pins that are already mounted there. So I don't think it's too bad, and from a distance you can't really tell. What's good about putting it up there, although it's a bit more effort to do, does mean it frees up more space in the DD rail, which is notoriously quite a tight fit for batteries, especially on the ICS where you have to take the gun apart to get it off. Bit of a pain. However, if you are running the standard handguard with quick slide off, or like in L86 with the fold open handguard or the carbine version of that, you've got tons of space up in the front, so you can put the MOSFET there and not try and fit it up here. That being said, you still do have to take the barrel out to get into the wire harness to re-rig it for the MOSFET. But now you know how to do that. So I hope this video has been useful. If it has, and you aren't already, consider subscribing to the channel. And if you haven't already, I do have social media pages, both Facebook and Instagram. So hop on over there and you'll get kind of like some extra posts behind the scenes, me just chatting crap really. And you can, you know, chat crap back at me. So that's all for now. I hope you've enjoyed the video, and I will see you all soon in the next one. And it may not be SA80 focused, because I seem to have quite a lot of them surrounding me at the moment. Yeah. Goodbye for real this time.